Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Wild, Wild Death, the show where we talk about all the ways people left this life in the Old West. Each week, we spin the wagon wheel of untimely demise, and whatever manner of death it lands on, we tell you a story about it. I'm Leslie Sedali.
I'm Susan Busa-Leshner.
And I'm Jack James Busa.
Hey, everybody. How you doing?
Great.
Hello.
I'm looking forward to hearing a story, so I think we should get right to it. Let's spin the wagon wheel of untimely demise.
Great. Here we go.
And the studio audience goes, spin that wheel.
Okay. Here it comes. So this should be interesting. The mode of death for today is poison.
I've been waiting for... Okay, I have a really great, scandalous, tantalizing story.
Let's hear it.
Okay. In 1885, 48-year-old James Reeve Walkup, mayor of Emporia, Kansas, died after a painful illness. But was the cause the medicine he was taking as an aphrodisiac? Or was it because he was murdered by his 16-year-old bride of 1 month? This tale is called Till Death Do Us Part, the story of Minnie Wallace Walkup. New Orleans, December 1884. James Reeves Walkup comes to town for a little rest and relaxation. At 47 years old, Walkup is a substantial fellow, big and brawny, successful and rich. He'd come west after the Civil War, worked hard, made a fortune, and was elected mayor of Emporia, Kansas. He's a 2-time widower with 2 daughters who love him. Walkup has a great life in Kansas, but when he needs a break from the pressures of politics and business, New Orleans is the place for Walkup. It has everything he needs: food, wine, and brothels. Especially brothels. Walkup loves to have a good time in the bedroom, and New Orleans is one of his favorite places to satisfy his appetites. However, on this trip, instead of staying in the area close to the kind of nightlife he is looking for, just by chance, Walkup stays in a boarding house near Canal Street, run by Elizabeth Wallace. Mrs. Wallace's boarding houses are where out-of-town visitors, especially male visitors, and local bigwigs eat great food, drink, and socialize. Occasionally, Mrs. Wallace's daughters can be coaxed to entertain. Dora sings while Minnie accompanies her on the piano. By every account, both young ladies were stunningly beautiful, especially Minnie. Walkup takes one look at Minnie and falls head over heels. Within days, he's decided he wants to marry her. And it doesn't matter that they just met, doesn't matter that they've never spent any real time together, and it doesn't matter that Walkup is 47 and Minnie is 15, or that Walkup's or that Walkup's daughter is only 2 years older than Minnie. None of that matters to Walkup.
Oh, gosh.
I'm sure it doesn't. He's the kind of man who knows what he wants and goes after it. He asks Mrs. Wallace for Minnie's hand in marriage, and she says no. In
Good.
fact, because she's a very nice mom.
Too young.
Mrs. Wallace tells him that he is just one of many suitors who wants to marry Minnie. Minnie is apparently a very hot commodity. But Walkup does not give up. He has to go back home to Kansas, and over the next few months, he writes letters, he sends gifts, he comes back for visits, even bringing his youngest daughter with him. You know, the one who's only 2 years older than Minnie. However, he doesn't tell his daughter what his intentions towards Minnie really are. The other thing Walkup does is he makes promises. He promises to buy Mrs. Wallace a house, he promises to help the family financially, and he promises to help Minnie's cousin Willie find a career. He tells Mrs. Wallace that Minnie will want for nothing. She'll have a fine house, she'll have money, she'll have a servant, and as the wife of the mayor, she'll be respected. Eventually, Mrs. Wallace decides, okay, let's go take a trip west and see for ourselves. I mean, it's, he's persistent and all these promises. It doesn't sound so bad.
I wonder about how Minnie feels about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. If I was 15 and some guy was like, you're going to be super rich and you're going to live in a great house and you'll never have to clean, I'd be like, maybe, I don't know. Although I'm making this podcast with my mom and I know what her answer would be. It would be a hard effing no. But but anyway, she's like, let's go out west and let's go see. And so everything is exactly as Walkup claims. He has money, he has a big house, he has a servant, he's got it all. But what he doesn't have is patience. He wants to get married. Minnie is now 16 and she agrees. By this time, Walkup's daughters have learned their father is about to take a teenage wife and they want nothing to do with it. They don't even attend the wedding. Walkup and Minnie tie the knot on July 22nd, 1885. Mrs. Wallace goes back to New Orleans and Minnie stays behind in Emporia, Kansas to start her new life as Mrs. Minnie Wallace Walkup. Walkup throws a huge party to show off his young bride, and all of Emporia turns out to welcome Minnie to the town. And I'm sure to, get the gossip.
Check her out.
Yeah, check her out. I would definitely be going to that wedding. Walkup has the girl of his dreams, and Minnie has a charge account to the finest store in town and a servant to do all the housework. Things seem to be going well for the newlyweds. But a couple of weeks after the wedding, Walkup experiences severe stomach cramps, headaches, and diarrhea, becoming so ill he's forced to take his bed. Minnie stays by his side and attends to his every need. The symptoms pass and it looks like he's recovered. Walkup tries to go back to business as usual. The symptoms return. Minnie again stays with him night and day, but this time the symptoms are much worse than before. Try as they might, the doctors can't find a way to help him, and Walkup dies with Minnie by his side on August 22nd, 1885, 1 month after their wedding, to the day.
Whoa.
To the doctors, Walkup's symptoms had all the earmarks of a man who was poisoned. They learned that Minnie had made several trips to various pharmacies in town where she had bought strychnine and arsenic. That charge account is
you could just go into the store and buy this stuff. That's crazy.
Well, back then you could go into a store and buy cocaine and other things, but I'll get to all that. And when they questioned her, she claimed that she planned to use the strychnine to clean a dress and the arsenic to keep her complexion clear and her skin white. And like you were saying, you could go into a pharmacy. This seems crazy. In 1885, you could buy a whole lot of things at the pharmacy that you'd never consider as any kind of safe medical remedy now. You could buy cocaine and morphine and all kinds of dangerous stuff. Although Minnie did have to sign a book stating that she'd purchased these two poisons, so there was a record of her purchases. An autopsy was performed, and sure enough, Walkup had died from arsenic poisoning. Minnie was placed... Yeah, open and shut. That's what he died from, period. And Minnie was placed under house arrest. And because the police really felt like they should arrest someone, they arrested her young cousin Willie, the guy that he helped to get a job, who probably had nothing to do with it. The police were like, we gotta do someone. We might as well, we'll get him. He didn't do anything.
We don't want to put a woman in the pokey, so we're going to put this kid in there.
Yeah, he's in the pokey, and she's under house arrest. This turn of events was a sensation and made front page of the newspapers. According to the August 23rd, 1885 edition of the New Orleans Times-Picayune, quote, Minnie Wallace, a beautiful New Orleans bride of a month, among strangers in a strange land. In arrest for causing the death of her husband by poison. The mysterious sudden illness and death of Honorable J.R. Walkup has been attended with most intense excitement in Emporia. Knots of agitated citizens during all of Friday night and Saturday morning discussed the event on the streets as evidence of foul play on the part of his wife increased. A guard was mounted upon the residence and grounds. They patrolled the premises during the early morning hours of Saturday to prevent the escape of the young and beautiful woman who was suspected of the murder of a man whom, less than a month ago, she had married.
This is some writing for a newspaper article, I'll tell you.
It gets even better. It reminds me of some musical, like stunning beauty murders her husband in an arsenic case of hoop-de-doo. It sounds amazing. Okay, the New Orleans Times quote goes on. A post-mortem examination of the remains was held this afternoon, and the stomach and intestines were found in a congested state with indications of corrosive poison. At 2 o'clock, the coroner summoned a jury at the Walkup residence, and the taking of testimony was proceeded with. Mr. Ryder, M.H. Bates, and R.R. Kelly, druggists, testified that Mrs. Walkup had purchased arsenic at their respective stores. It was
3
testified
stores.
Also, yeah, that charge account was a bad move, man. It was testified also that she had entire charge of the patient during his last sickness, administering all of the medicine, etc. The coroner at 4:30 this evening adjourned the jury and instructed the sheriff to hold Mrs. Walkup in custody until Monday morning at 8 o'clock when the jury will meet again. A boy named William D. Walkup, a second cousin, who about 3 weeks ago arrived here from New Orleans, has also been arrested and locked up. The boy was very angry and said he had stolen nothing and didn't see why he should have been put in jail, which is totally understandable,
This is like an open and shut case. I mean, she's the only person there.
Yeah, well, it's open and shut that he died of arsenic, but what's not open and shut is if she poisoned him.
I mean, what do you think, Leslie? I mean, she's going around to all these pharmacists buying up, strychnine and arsenic.
I think beautiful women get away with murder.
Yeah, I guess they do.
I should know that all too well.
Oh.
Anyway, the article goes on to say, the Wallace family has been noted for the beauty of its female members, and Miss Minnie was considered the fairest flower of the flock. Hers is an ideal, a dreamy beauty, such as men rave about. Miss Minnie is a tall, graceful, slender, but well-developed girl with perfect complexion, white with the roses blooming on her cheeks blood red. Her hair is long and black, and large black eyes and heavy eyelashes, with a mastery of expression complete the picture, which is a rare one. She was noted for her beauty, which early had many admirers. End quote. That's quite the write-up.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah. I get the impression it's like there's no way a woman would do something like this. Like men do not
Yeah.
know what women are because this guy married her, like having met her like a couple of times, and he's so taken she's pretty that's all he needed to know.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I
So-
guess not just pretty, but extremely beautiful. With great boobs, apparently. Well endowed. That's really awesome of them to write that. I mean,
In the newspaper.
I don't deny she was really beautiful, but it's certainly helping her out because if she was some like staunchy broad, I don't think this newspaper would have been like, hey, everyone be nice to her. She's really cute and we like her.
Evidently, she was quite the babe.
There was an inquest, and sure enough, Minnie was indicted for the murder of her husband and would stand trial. This was one of those sensational trials that was covered by many newspapers all over the country. And Minnie read every single article about herself.
But let me jump in here. Does this remind anybody of that movie Chicago?
Yes, I've been thinking Chicago the whole time.
Oh.
Yeah.
She had also been the only one who had cared for Walkup at first, bringing him everything that he had to eat and drink. The doctors who had taken charge of Walkup's care became suspicious of her arsenic purchases and asked to see how much she had.
God.
Minnie told them that she'd removed the arsenic from its original package and placed it in a separate box. The doctors asked if they could weigh the arsenic to know how much, if any, arsenic had been used. But just as she was handing them the box, she dropped it and the arsenic went all over the floor. Stunt queen. She claimed that it was an accident, but it made her look suspicious. Duh.
I mean, my gosh, this is a person that evidently doesn't think there's any consequences ever for anything.
Well, she's 16 and she's probably
really silly.
I think at 16, I knew murder was wrong.
Yeah, I would say I knew that was wrong.
Yeah, I knew that was wrong.
Thank you.
And on top of all of this, they had that autopsy that showed that Walkup died from arsenic poisoning. Well, no one actually saw Minnie give Walkup arsenic. When they put it all together, the prosecution had a very strong circumstantial case. The defense agreed that Walkup died of arsenic poisoning, but they claimed that Walkup poisoned himself. They called him an arsenic eater, meaning he was using arsenic to treat himself for syphilis and using it as an aphrodisiac to try to keep up with his young bride. The defense brought up all kinds of information about Walkup's very active sex life. They put prostitutes who had been with him and doctors who had claimed to have treated him for STDs on the stand. The former mayor of Emporia, a man named William J., took to the stand, and he claimed he personally saw Walkup take arsenic. However, as Jay was completely enamored of Minnie, he probably committed perjury trying to help her. The defense pointed out that Minnie and Walkup had barely been married a month and were still in their honeymoon phase of marriage. There was no reason for Minnie to kill a man who was giving her everything. The defense claimed that Walkup's chronic use of arsenic was the cause of his demise. His poor, defenseless, and very beautiful young widow was innocent.
Wow.
Feels like you have to have one of those pianos playing behind it,
How
saloon
could
piano.
she? She's just a young old thing from New Orleans. Yeah. She's so beautiful. She's only 16 years old. She was so nervous that she dropped the arsenic all over the floor. Anyway, the jury goes out to deliberate. If they found her guilty, she'd hang. Was she guilty? It's worth noting that the autopsy showed no signs that Walkup had syphilis. But again, Why would Minnie kill a man she'd been married to barely a month?
All right, I have thoughts about this.
Yes.
Okay,
Hit
you
me.
first, Leslie.
I can think of a few reasons she might want to kill him.
Okay, so what do you think?
Well, if her mother was, pushing for this marriage, maybe she didn't want the marriage. Maybe she thought it would be okay, and then thought, no, I'm not having sex with this old guy. I don't know.
I think
True,
something
but it seems like the mom was not for the marriage at first, and then eventually she gave in because of the perks of the job.
Well, I mean, if you have you're supporting yourselves with a boarding house, and your daughter has an opportunity to be wealthy, you'd probably be interested in that. But I think the sex thing is important because, first of all, I'm sure that Minnie did not know what she was getting into if this guy had a really strong sex life. Yeah. Secondly, maybe she was afraid of getting syphilis if she even knew what that was. But I'm sure, just like you said, Leslie, she's like, wait a minute, we're going to have to take our clothes off here? That's not what I signed up for.
Count me out.
Count me out.
Well, it would be disturbing to live in the reality of what you've signed up for to actually find out what that means. She's 16 years old. This guy is near 50 years old. I don't know what her sexual history she has. If she has one, she very well
I'm sure not
could have
any.
been
Not.
a virgin.
No.
And that reality can be, even though she was like, yeah, I'm going to get married to this guy, that can still be traumatic because that's a lot. That's kind of scary. So
Well,
A lot of
mothers-
mothers nice to her. What if he wasn't very nice to her? What if he?
Well, once he
was
got her
violent?
in, yeah. But the thing is, a lot of mothers did not tell their daughters how the mechanics of sex worked.
of course not.
Right.
But I don't know. That's an argument for her killing him. The other thing is he very well could have been an arsenic user as an aphrodisiac. This other guy who may or may not have committed perjury says that he's seen him take arsenic before. So
Was that a
that is
thing?
a valid argument. That's a valid argument that
There's
he could
no,
have done
there's
that.
no.
She could have went out and bought it for him. She might not know what art. I don't know.
Well, then she would have said that. She would have said that. The
Yeah,
thing
also
is,
she
though, there
used it
was
for
no
her
cure
complexion,
for
so.
syphilis or any of that stuff, and a lot of times they take mercury and, talk about mad as a hatter, that just would make you go crazy. Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's really nothing. Anyway, so what happened? What happened?
Okay, the jury deliberates. When the jury comes back, they announce that Minnie is innocent. Oh, the town gasps. People go, I always knew she was. Anyway, after the trial was over, one of the men on the jury said, quote, if I had voted for that little girl's conviction, her face would haunt me to my dying day. Minnie, Minnie was free. And as Walkup's widow, she received about $250,000 from his estate. That's equivalent to about $8 million today. An estimate. She packed up, left Emporia, and went back to New Orleans. And that should have been the last anyone ever heard of Minnie Wallace Walkup, but it wasn't. Minnie, no. Minnie wound up moving to Chicago, where a Louisiana U.S. Senator by the name of William Pitt Kellogg set her up in a house. Minnie lived a lavish lifestyle. But by 1896, her money was about to run out. But luckily, she met the very wealthy and alcoholic John Ketchum. John was married, but after Minnie came into the picture, his wife divorced him. Minnie moved him into her house. Pretty much kept him liquored up and more or less a prisoner of the house.
Ooh.
According to Minnie, she and John got married in Wisconsin in 1897. Ketchum signed a will that left everything to Minnie, and less than 2 weeks later, he was dead. What a coinkydink. This time, the papers weren't as kind. An article about Ketchum's death in the November 15th, 1897 issue of the Topeka State Journal had the headline, "Still at it, Minnie Wallace in a familiar role."
Oh, yeah.
Fool me once. An autopsy was done, but there was no poison in Ketchum's system. He had died of acute alcoholism. Although his family challenged the will, Minnie wound up with another $250,000.
Okay, so here's the thing. This guy surely knew her history. You know?
Right.
And even if he got off, he'd still be, I think, a little cautious.
Well, men tend
She
to
must
think
have been.
with a different head when it comes to beautiful
Yeah.
women. It's true.
I'm telling you, everyone but me, I guess. I mean, he's like thinking, well, it wouldn't happen to me because I'm so great. But I mean, I think if she kept him in the house and she kept supplying him with liquor, that's as good as poisoning him to death.
Yep.
That's true.
But
it's different with
alcohol is
alcoholism
not
because it's a
illegal, so-
disease. Yeah.
Well,
And it's a
arsenic
disease,
wasn't
so-
illegal either.
Yeah.
He had to take the drink himself, so there was some participation. But oh my gosh,
It's a
oh
little
my gosh.
different. But yeah, she got her the same exact number, so Minnie has a price. And, you know, that should have been the last time anyone heard of Minnie. But it wasn't.
Whoa!
Oh, my
Minnie
goodness.
was 31 in 1900 when she got involved with a man named Delancey Horton Louderback. Say that 5 times fast. Again, he was an older man, about 20 years older than Minnie. But older men seems to be Minnie's target audience. Guess that's what she knows. Anyway, she gets with Louderback. Louderback was married, but that didn't stop him from becoming obsessed with Minnie and spending a fortune on her. When Louderback's wife died from cancer, he cabled Minnie, but she was in Europe with no plans to return home. Shortly after that, Louderback died from cyanide poisoning. It was
Oh my gosh.
probably suicide. Minnie wasn't there when he died, but he did leave her money in his will.
God.
Eventually,
Oh
she's kind of awesome.
Oh my God. I mean,
The Black Widow.
I think she's cool.
I don't know. I don't think I agree with that.
In a macabre way. I sort
Here's
of.
what I think. I think in this particular case, men are dumb. I mean, these particular guys, golly.
Eventually, so the story goes, Minnie married an officer in the English army, but he was killed in 1917 during World War I. Finally, having enough notoriety, Minnie changed her name to Estelle Minnie Keating. She died in San Diego, California in 1957 at the ripe old age of 88 and was buried there in an unmarked grave. While Minnie was never married for long, she did live up to her vows, in sickness and in health, until death do us part.
Oh my God.
Wow.
She's an iconic
Wow.
figure. There should be, I mean, I'm glad we get to talk about her. There should be a movie about her. People would love, like a mini series or
She's
something.
like a Black Widow kind of person.
I love
Yeah,
this
for
story. I
sure.
think it's so cool, like in a
Creepy.
macabre way. It's creepy. A Black Widow. I mean, someone should really make the story of Minnie Wallace Walkup into a mini series.
All
That was
right.
good.
If you would like to know more about this story, please check out the links in our show notes and follow us on social media at The Wild Wild Death.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
See you next time.
Adios, muchachis.
The Wild Wild Death is a 2222 media production.